So, after getting like halfway through my LEGO set and after completing the latest Destiny season, I finally put those addictions aside and focused on Baldur's Gate 3. Like, for a while I've been playing it kind of casually, but I decided to sit down and really dig deep into it. And, okay, I get the hype now. This game is really, really, really good. Like, stupid good. And I want to learn from it, as do many people out there. If you're unaware, Baldur's Gate 3, like, somehow unaware, Baldur's Gate 3 is a Dungeons & Dragons video game. It takes place in the D&D universe of the Forgotten Realms and uses D&D 5th edition as its base system to create its mechanics. Now, obviously, it is a conversion. It has changed a lot of things, and frankly, that is for the best. BG3 is a video game after all. It should make changes. And I think despite that, it can teach some really valuable lessons on how to play Dungeons & Dragons, how to play TTRPGs in general. Both good lessons and bad ones. We're going to be taking a look at 3 bad takeaways from Baldur's Gate 3, and then we're going to be taking a look at 3 great takeaways from Baldur's Gate 3 in an effort to make all of your games even better than they were before. So yeah, without further ado, guys, let's get started. Alright, bad lesson number 1, and this one, okay, it's gonna be fairly obvious to all of you guys watching this probably, especially in my immediate audience, but guys, romance is not a part of every D&D game. It is a big part of Baldur's Gate 3. For a long time, this was advertised as the horniest RPG ever, which, yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, I played through the game and didn't notice anything completely absurd. In fact, a romantic scene that I ended up turning down ended up being one of my favorite scenes in the entire game. However, in general, even though I think romance works so well in this game, it's ridiculous, I also think in Dungeons & Dragons, you need to be careful. This is going to be a running theme, but Baldur's Gate 3 is primarily a single-player game. You are playing it alone, but when you're playing D&D, or the vast majority of tabletop role-playing games, you're playing with other people, and keeping those other people in mind is paramount. With romance in particular, that is especially sensitive. Romance is a big part of Baldur's Gate 3. It can even, like, take you by surprise sometimes. There's a certain druid in my camp who will not stop propositioning me. I swear to God, it's getting annoying at this point. And that kind of thing, while fun in this video game, it would be very unwelcome in a lot of tabletop role-playing groups. Not everyone wants to do romance, and a lot of people do not want romance springed on them. I'm open to doing romantic subplots at my D&D tables. It's a running gag that I hate them, but I don't. I really don't. In fact, one of my favorite plots I've ever done was a romance in my first ever Dungeons & Dragons campaign between these 2 characters. In fact, one of the characters, Kalia Solfero, she's the character I'm playing in Baldur's Gate 3. Really, I do like romance, but even I would really not appreciate if somebody sprung it on me out of nowhere. Romance needs to be communicated about heavily before anything is put forward. You need to tell people what you're comfortable with and not comfortable with in general, and romance is definitely one of those cases. While it is an integral part of Baldur's Gate 3 for the most part, it's a big part of the game and the narrative and the relationships that you can have with the companions in that story. In D&D, it's not always going to be like that. Not everyone's going to want romance. And assuming that they do, just because, like, oh, this is a role-playing game. Why isn't it like BG3, where I can romance, like, tons of people? Well, it's not always going to be like that. You need to be accepting of that. Romance can be awesome, but you need to talk about it first. Ooh, this one's fun. Now, full disclosure, I haven't even finished my first playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, so I certainly haven't done my Dark Urge playthrough, and honestly, I have no idea if I'm actually going to, because I only have so much time in my life. Playing this game multiple times might be a little bit consuming, but my point is, full disclosure, haven't done Dark Urge, but I have seen it online, and from what I can tell, it seems really fun. However, as many who are experienced with tabletop role-playing games can attest, having somebody who is fulfilling their dark urge at your D&D table might be a tad bit annoying, like extremely annoying. It has been a running joke in a lot of my comment sections in RPG horror stories, people joking that these problem players are giving in to the dark urge. And I can kind of see that. Now, of course, the dark urge in Baldur's Gate 3, it is an in-game thing. You are a single person playing this game. You're not harming anyone else. Now, unfortunately, problem player behavior in RPG horror stories regularly goes into out-of-game harm. But even when it pertains to in-game harm, it's important to remember that yet again, you are playing Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop role-playing games with other people. Even if the harm your character is doing is restricted to in-game murder, stealing from the party, and just being a general jerk face, that can still get really annoying really fast. It doesn't really matter if it's what your character would do or that's what your character just is. That doesn't matter to the people who are playing at your table, because while choice is really important in Dungeons & Dragons, just like how it's important in Baldur's Gate 3, the choices you make in D&D should make the game more fun for everyone at the table. The choices that the Dark Urge makes in Baldur's Gate 3, they're selfish choices. You know, you're doing evil things primarily for yourself. And creating a character like that for Dungeons & Dragons in your D&D group, maybe that could work in some far-off realm, in some far-off table I haven't seen before, but in the vast majority of tables, that would be extremely cumbersome to play with, and for good reason. No one wants to shepherd around a murder hobo who's constantly on the verge of killing everyone in their vicinity. That is a lot to handle. Could it work? I mean, maybe, but again, vast majority of the time, no. And therefore, you should temper your urges when you want to play something a bit more evil. Like I said before, the choices you make should build up the game for everyone. If your choices ruin the fun for the players, for the dungeon master, you should probably consider making different choices. Or, better yet, consider finding a table where the choices you want to make are going to be more acceptable. However, in D&D, that kind of evil is not going to be a constant. Freedom of choice is important, but like I said before, your choices should build up the game. If your evil choices make the game less fun for other people, it doesn't matter that freedom of choice is important. Your choice is still screwed over the rest of the table, and why would they want to keep you around if that is the case? Okay, I'm sure if you've been on this channel since I did my Critical Role trilogy of Tabletop Tavern Tips videos, you'll know about this lesson here, but it's still what I want to talk about. Full disclosure, this is a me thing. This isn't universal. A lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, but it is something that I want to talk about since a lot of people seem to agree with me whenever I bring it up, so here we go. I am not the biggest fan of easy resurrections. Now, in Baldur's Gate 3, there's a reason why resurrections are so easy. If you're unaware, in-game, at least during my playthrough, I did start on normal and then went down to easy mode just because I wanted a more casual experience. But anyway, I have no idea if that makes a difference, but in that playthrough, I've got like 50 Revivify Scrolls. Not actually 50, but I have a lot of Revivify Scrolls, to the point where I'm really not worried about losing a player character. And that's a good thing, because in Baldur's Gate 3, you die, like, all the time, at least in my experience. Not necessarily because, like, I take too much damage in combat, just sometimes I fall off cliffs or I get shoved off, or in the Underdark, something blows up and I go over the edge, no saving throw, I'm just gone. Yeah, that is really annoying in normal Dungeons & Dragons games. In D&D, death, in the vast majority of campaigns, is usually a really big deal. Sometimes it's impossible to bring a player character back. Death is a sorrowful thing, and the one time when I permanently killed a player character, people cried over it. Like, it was a big deal. In Baldur's Gate 3, it's a little bit more lax, though there are permanent deaths, or at least so I've heard. I haven't experienced them yet. There's permanent deaths that happen for story reasons, but in terms of just gameplay, moment-to-moment consequences for choices, death is something that is easily reversed. However, in D&D, again, depends on the campaign, but in D&D, this is something you need to be really careful about. Making death too easy, and resurrection too easy, both of them, that makes death feel really cheap. In BG3, I can just get shoved off a cliff and just instantly die. I can trigger a mushroom and then boom, I go over the edge and I'm gone. Or I go into a dialogue box and suddenly I come back and realize all of my party members have been poisoned by some fungus and are just dead now. Like, what the heck even happened there? My point is that in BG3, that happens a lot, and in D&D, that might be a tad bit annoying. We've all heard of Tomb of Horrors and its insta-kill traps, and a lot of people don't like that. We put a lot of effort into making these characters, and losing them permanently to something that feels cheap, that's a lot less fun than having a player character die in some big, bad, epic moment. The same thing goes for resurrection, by the way. If your character goes out in a big, bad, epic moment, and then they're just instantly revived because someone had one of their 5,000 Revivify Scrolls, that really cheapens the moment, doesn't it? And also kind of eliminates a possible quest opportunity. Those Critical Role videos I mentioned earlier, they were all about making quests out of resurrections. You should totally check them out, by the way. But yeah, that's something that you can do, and making death so unfortunately cheap, while it works in BG3, it might not work in Dungeons and Dragons, where death is supposed to be, in a lot of games, a little bit more impactful. Again, depends on the campaign. This is definitely a me thing. I have a thing with Revivify. I've been on this channel for long enough. But yeah, there you go. A little extra lesson there. Without further ado, I think it's about time we moved on to the good stuff. There's enough negative talk in this video. Let's move on to the countless great things you could talk about when it comes to learning good lessons from Baldur's Gate 3. Okay, first thing I noticed immediately when talking to all of the origin characters, aka a lot of your companions, they all have really strong quest hooks. This is a great lesson when you are trying to write characters, whether it be NPCs or player characters. Though, in this case, I think it more strays towards player characters. These are really involved quest hooks that put the companions, these origin characters, at the very forefront. Shadowheart's journey through her faith, or Astarion's journey with his vampire master, all of that stuff that heavily involves the characters in question, which is good, by the way. But with NPCs, that might be a little bit much depending on your party. I think, however, while we're applying this lesson to player characters, this is great. At the surface level, these origin characters, these player characters, they can be summarized pretty quickly. In fact, at the character creation screen, they all do so, like, pretty quickly. They don't need to go on like a 20-minute monologue to explain what is going on with their backstory. And that is great. There's actually two awesome lessons here. Number one, the presence of such a backstory gives the dungeon master a great hook to lead that person into the game, but also the brevity of its delivery is also great, because look, a lot of DMs are not going to read through 5 pages of backstory. Shadowheart's short little blurb about who she is absolutely perfect. Like, if I got that from a player character, that is my dream. Something that I can consume easily, but something with a lot of possibilities for me to create stories inside of the campaign. DMs love, or at least in my opinion, good DMs love integrating our players right into the game, and I know a lot of players love it when DMs do that. Make it easy on us, though. Don't leave it to us to figure out what your goals are supposed to be. Tell us what your goals are. Tell us about any sort of mysteries or hooks in your backstory so that we can use those. Will's pact with Mizora, Shadowheart's mysterious mission and memory loss, all of these are exactly what DMs are looking for to create hooks for player characters. Both of these are amazing. Okay, lesson number 2, and I think this is going to apply to the vast majority of tables. Discovery. Oh my god. Baldur's Gate 3 has a great sense of discovery. Going up to a locked door and just wondering what is behind it. Finding a mysterious key covered in blood and wondering what it unlocks. These kind of things are really awesome in BG3, and I think it's even better in a game that takes place entirely in your imagination. You're not constrained by the limits of what you can model and texture and code and integrate into a video game. You just need to think it and say it. That's it. And with that, you can create so many mysteries and discoveries and possibilities for your players to explore. Now, obviously, you are playing an entirely different medium. Your constraints are looser, but you might have different constraints that you need to deal with. For example, that you are not a whole writing team. You are one person. Building discoveries, what I'm trying to say is, even in this medium of imagination, building discoveries can be really, really hard. For me, the best thing I ever did for my player characters in terms of discovery is using battle maps in this way. Putting little Easter eggs in battle maps, or using battle maps where Easter eggs are present. Full disclosure, I'm about to say nice things about Che Peku. They do sponsor this channel. They haven't sponsored this video. I just say nice things about them all the time, okay? So just full disclosure, I want to get that out there. But anyway, disclosure out of the way, Che Peku, they make D&D battle maps. In this battle map, the Surgeon's Theater, there are so many items scattered throughout this area. And honestly, I didn't put much thought into what any of them actually were. I thought of the mummified corpses in the area because they're a major part of the set piece. However, other than that story, I didn't really think of anything else. The plague doctor mask, or that weird staff, or what the machine is doing to the dude in the machine, why that guy's eyes are glowing. Like, honestly, I didn't think about any of that. I just thought it was decorative fluff. However, my player characters thought otherwise. They thought all of this stuff was important, and you know what? I had to make things up on the fly, and that ended up being my best ever session. The only really important things in that room were the machine in the center and all the mummified bodies. That was it. However, my player characters started investigating around the room, running around, looking at every little knick-knack and thinking about what it could be used for. Now, was any of it campaign shifting? No, but I thought of some interesting things that could build up the lore of my game. That sense of discovery for my players was excellent. Seeing them excitedly rush their characters around my virtual tabletop, trying to find every little nick and cranny, that was incredible. That sense of discovery is exactly what I want in all of my Dungeons & Dragons games. And hell, that's a battle map. That's a visual thing that I had to rely on. When it's just in your imagination, it's even stronger. But again, you need to present your players with those mysterious things. When there's not a battle map for them to run around with, I need to tell my players, like, hey, there's a mask on the table. Do you want to see what it is? Or better yet, just tell them there's a mask on the table and put that out there. Don't ask them if they want to see what it is. Just tell them there's a mask and see if they're interested in it in the first place. Again, these don't need to be game-breaking or game-changing things. A lot of the smaller Easter eggs in Baldur's Gate 3, they are just Easter eggs. You know, mounds of dirt where you can find some extra gold coins. But again, that sense of discovery is so strong here. Little mysteries like blood-stained keys or locked secret cabinets, all of those build a much more full world. As a dungeon master, you have a lot less constraints with that in here. You just need to remember to put it forward in front of your players. And trust me, they will be thoroughly excited to discover what you have in store. Okay, I was waffling back and forth on what I want to do with this final point. I was going to have it be another me thing about combat, because I really like hard combat. And Baldur's Gate 3 does have a lot of hard combat. I fold most of the main quest fights, but man, some of these random encounters are crazy difficult, especially if you're under-leveled. And I like that. I enjoy that challenge. However, on the other hand, I realized that that really does not resonate with every single person, even if that is a me thing. So I was really thinking of, what should this final lesson be? And I came to a conclusion. Baldur's Gate 3 has so much freedom to play how you want, to have fun in your way. And I think that that is its greatest lesson. Even as a video game, there's so much freedom here. D&D and TTRPGs, they are mediums where that kind of freedom is rewarded. You and your group as a whole are free to play this game how you wish. Now, like I said earlier, you should think of it as you and your group playing the game how you wish. Being selfish with this freedom is not good. Using your freedom to ruin the game for others is a bad thing 100% of the time. But with you and your group working together to explore how you can play these games in your own way, that is what makes it so awesome. My players love the hard combats I put in front of them. My players like role-playing with NPCs in a heavy manner. They like NPCs with tons and tons of depth for them to explore, Commander Shepard and Mass Effect style. They love that. That is their style. We found that together as a group, them and myself. And that is what makes our game so awesome. We made this game for us. That's the reason I don't stream my home games, by the way, because the game's not really for anyone but us. I mean, I'm sure maybe someone out there would enjoy it, but the point isn't that someone would enjoy it. The point is that this is our thing. And that's the way your D&D game should probably be too. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game where there is so much freedom to play how you want, to the point where some people are describing what is like completely a different game to me. I mean, seriously, there's this drow lady that I dropped into a ravine that was apparently a fully fledged companion character. How was I supposed to know that? The Gith lady that I met at the beginning of the campaign, some people talk about her like she's this super in-depth character, whereas I have no idea where she even went. She just disappeared into the void. There's this dude named Gale that everyone cannot shut up about, and I have no idea who that is. Like, seriously, these characters are vital parts of so many people's games, and I had no idea they even existed. That freedom to play in your own way is what makes this game great. And in D&D, that freedom is even greater. For you and your entire group to discover your style, to discover how you play, the story you want to tell at your own table. That's what makes these games so much fun. I think that's why Baldur's Gate 3 has been such a success. And if you want your table to share in that success, find that freedom yourself. You and your group, figuring out together how you guys want to play the game. And yeah, there you go. Lesson for Baldur's Gate 3. I finally got into the game, and like I said before, I'm getting the hype, if you can't tell. But in any case, if you guys enjoyed, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our Tavern Adjacent podcast. It's going to be sharing the Wednesday slot with Tabletop Tavern tips. So sometimes we're going to be doing D&D advice in this show. Sometimes we're going to be doing a free-form podcast. It just depends on what I'm feeling that week. I want to cut down the video schedule so that I can focus on making better videos, quality versus quantity. You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, check out the podcast, link in the cards. And while you're there, subscribe to Crypto Tavern to get more of our content when it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own tips or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment, play your way to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.